Welcome to One World Countless Story podcast with me, Selena Novello. Hello, look at my sign. It's on and you can, it's actually dark out. So this time you'll be able to see it. Okay. Don't fall. There's the computer. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Ta-da! So cute. I love that. Okay. So I am going to be sharing another interview from the One World Countless Story podcast with me, Selena Novello. And today I interviewed Shari Collins, and her story is so amazing. And we talked about so many different things, so many ups, but so many downs. Like, it was just so good. We talked about her dad leaving her when she was young. We talked about how that affected her. Then we also talked about her career and her schooling journey, and then also to present day where she is the happiest she's ever been. And she talked a bit about how she found the love of her life and all the online dating and all those kind of things. So it is one great conversation, and I am so excited for you to hear it. So let's get started.
Sure. Well, as you said, my name is Shari Collins, and I'm in my mid-40s now, and I feel like I should explain the blotches on my face to start with. We're talking about, I had some laser treatment, so normally I do not look like I've been attacked. But anyways, so that aside, I'm an only child, and long story short, until recently, I'm an only child from my mother and my father. I was born in Toronto, but lived most of my life in Calgary. I did a couple of stints in the US for school and for work. I lived in Butte, Montana for a couple of years for school, and went to Houston for a year for work. But basically raised by my mom, and was only close with my mom's side of the family. I don't know, I guess basically my life has not been that exciting, despite what Selena says, in my opinion, but recently it's been very exciting, I have to say. I guess give you a little bit more background. Sorry, I'm bouncing all over the place, but
it's awesome. Yeah. Tell us a bit about your childhood, and start, like you said, with your background. Dive into that a bit.
Yeah, so again, only child, born, basically raised in Calgary. I was lucky. I had a pretty stable childhood, lived in the same house from, it was 23 years. I lived in Woodlands, and, I have friends that I went to school with for 12 years, like kindergarten through grade 12. So yeah, tearing around Woodlands, I knew every a back alleyway to get everywhere. So it was nice. It was growing up in a neighborhood, a real community. My mom raised me on her own. My parents divorced when I was 8, I guess. And my dad decided to just abandon us, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
To be honest, it did. It took a long time to get over that. I was probably into my early 20s when I finally let that go. But now that I'm older, for many years now, I've actually looked at it as quite a blessing. It shaped who I am, and I wouldn't be where I'm at without that experience. Just to give you an idea, I remember being 8 years old and thinking, like, well, how is mom going to pay for groceries this week? And I remember thinking, like, when I grow up, I got to go to school. I gotta do something, because I got to get a good job so that I can afford my own groceries and my own apartment, without having to worry about getting married to have those things. Right. I mean, those are pretty bizarre thoughts for an 8-year-old to have, but I distinctly remember having those, and it never left me. And so for me, going to university was very important. And I did it. I ended up getting my engineering degree, and I've got a pretty lucrative career that I've worked hard at, and I'm still continuing to climb up that ladder. But I've always been able to buy my own groceries.
That's so awesome. And I know you said that it took a while for you to kind of get through that and get over it. Can you explain a little bit of the process? I'm sure there was lots of, strong feelings you had, but I'd love to hear how you kind of came to peace with all of that.
Yeah, it wasn't one particular thing. I think it was honestly just time. Because they do say that time heals all wounds, and I truly believe it does. So yeah, I guess and just maturity. When you're a teenager, you tend to be angry about everything anyways.
Yes.
So that just added into it as well. But I was very lucky. My mom was very patient and always supported me and loved me, and told me that everything was going to be okay. And then, just time that went on. And I kind of just had a realization one day that he wasn't worth it. Being angry about him leaving is not going to change the situation. And it's only hurting me because he's not even around to see it. So who am I doing this to? I'm doing it to myself. And so I just decided to let it go. And it truly was like a snap decision one day. I just was like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Mm-hmm. No, that's pretty awesome, because I feel like a lot of people might be able to resonate with this, where their parents have gotten divorced. And when you're so young, did you have feelings like it's all my fault, or did you blame yourself for anything that happened?
Not so much for the divorce. Because they did separate and were in the process of divorcing, and my dad would still come see me on the weekends sporadically. So I never thought that was my fault, and I had no idea why they got divorced or anything at the time. But when he left he left on a day that he was there to see me. I had feelings of like, wow, like, am I not good enough? Like, why doesn't he love me enough? And, so that's pretty hard for a kid to think about and have those feelings. But I guess it's very much human nature.
Yeah. And to struggle with that concept of not feeling enough, and that those types of feelings that you just described, how did you kind of rebuild those pieces back in yourself to realize that I am enough, I am lovable, and all those different types of things?
Mm-hmm. Well, it took some years, I have to say. I was probably about 23 when I finally let all that go. But like I say, it was just time and maturity and pretty much the love and support of my mom telling me that it had nothing to do with me, that those were his choices, and that I need to live my best life despite that. And so I guess I finally started listening to her.
That's awesome. I love that. And then you also said that you were like, I am going to get an education and I'm going to get a good job, so I never have to struggle like in that way again. And that's a crazy thought to have at such a young age, but it really pushed you into the right direction of your career. So I'm curious to hear some of that about your schooling and the career you're in now.
Yeah, well, it's actually funny because my mother worked in oil and gas for her career as well. And I still have to eat a little bit of crow every time that comes up, because I used to tell her, I'm never working in oil and gas. It's so boring. And I had to eat crow and suck it up, because that's exactly what I ended up doing. So but I actually bounced around a little bit in school when I first started. I went down to University of Lethbridge when I was 19 and did like a year of Bachelor of Science in biochemistry. I was good at science in school, and I just was like, what am I doing here? It was like pre-med stuff. And I was like, I don't want to be a doctor. So anyways, I came back to Calgary after that. And then I did some general studies at Mount Royal for a semester. And basically, I was just kind of doing nothing and wasting money and coasting around. My mom cracked the whip and said, look, you either go out and get a job and pay rent, or you go to school full time, you pick something, you stick with it, and you finish it. And so I was like, ooh, I don't want to pay rent. So
Yeah.
I ended up going to SAIT and doing the 2-year petroleum engineering technology program, which is a great program, and started working. And I just found that I wanted more for myself. I wanted more responsibility. I wanted to have the opportunity to grow, to move up that corporate ladder. And what that meant was finishing my degree. So I went down to Montana when I was 30 at that point, and did 2 years down there and finished my engineering degree. So, and had absolutely zero regrets about that.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
looking back on that now, what advice would you give to someone who, is just in school and not really knowing specifically what they want to do? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because school is very expensive. So you don't want to, waste too much time and money there. But, you don't really have to have it all figured out. You just have to go and take a chance, take a chance on yourself. Maybe take some basic science and math classes, because those are feeder classes to a whole bunch of other programs. And then take some classes about things that you're interested in and passionate about. And you never know, after you've been at school for a year, you will meet other kids that are interested in things that you never thought about before, and you might decide to go with that, or you never know what you're going to be exposed to. And so just go and take some basic classes that could give you credits in all kinds of different programs, and just take a chance and go. You will find your path, guaranteed.
I love
unless you refuse to look.
Yes. Oh, I love that. So you went to Montana, and
Yes.
what happened after that?
Yeah, I ended up getting a job. I wasn't sure if I was going to stay in the US and get a job there or come back here, but I ended up getting a job here in Calgary at an engineering firm. And I think it was one of the best jobs I could have landed for experience wise. Because it was actually, they're still around. Actually, I still work with them. We're one of their clients, but it's a consulting firm. And so they work on all kinds of different properties for all kinds of different companies. So I got an amazing breadth of experience there. So I was there for 4 years. And then I switched jobs. I went to a different company, and then I got laid off because that's the nature of oil and gas. Mm-hmm. But I was lucky, and I found another job right away, like that same week. Actually, during my layoff, because I had already kind of started looking, I kind of had that feeling. I had 2 job offers the same day I got laid off and got a package. So I was like, yes, winning. It doesn't always work out that way, but it did for me that day. And I ended up working for an American company. And then they are the ones that transferred me down to Houston. Mm-hmm. And I was there for a year. Absolutely loved it. But that was the start of the oil price drop in 2014, 2015. Mm-hmm. And so I lost my job. So I came back to Calgary, but I landed on my feet. So and I've been back for 7 years now. So.
Oh, wow. And what would you say? So what exactly do you do? So you're in oil and gas, but what do you specifically do?
Yeah, well, I find it interesting, but some people it would bore them to tears. But I have more focused. I've done a few different things, like where I've actually managed a property. And so I manage our budget that we're going to spend on drilling and fixing wells and all kinds of different stuff. But primarily what I've done is I work in the corporate umbrella, which means I do our corporate reserves, which is evaluating the value of our whole company and then getting that reported to the Securities and Exchange Commission or Alberta Securities, like depending what jurisdiction you're in.
Right.
So yeah, any publicly traded company needs to be fully evaluated every year, usually by a third party. So that obviously investors have confidence that it was third party and they're not, fluffing the books. Right. So I manage all that, and I do like all our corporate acquisitions and divestitures. I evaluate the value of those assets to either buy or sell. And then I help keep our credit lines going with our banks and our investors and that sort of stuff. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And what would you say, like, the hardest part of being in that industry specifically?
Just that nothing is under your control. When times are good, they're really good. It definitely pays well. And, a lot of companies, certainly the company that I work for, when they have extra to give, they do. They're very good to their employees. But, when times are bad, they're really bad. People lose their jobs and, take pay cuts and you always have to do more with less. And it's very, very up and down, like very with oil price, and none of that's under our control. So,
right. So you must be really good at living with uncertainty then.
Yeah, I try.
I was going to say, because it sounds like it's a pretty you never really know. It's a very uncertain industry where it's like one day it could be great, the next day it's not. So yeah. What's your thoughts around uncertainty and all that stuff?
Well, it's a lot easier said than done, but like with anything, whether it's something in your personal life or your work life, whatever, uncertainty is a guarantee. None of us are mind readers or future readers. Like, my magic 8-ball doesn't tell the truth about anything. So, yeah. And you have a choice to either let it drive you insane and define you, or you can just be like, whatever rolls my way, I'll be able to handle it, and I will figure it out as it comes, and I'm not going to obsess about it and drive myself crazy. And so I try and do that. It's not easy all the time, but
no, that's definitely good to live by. And I know what you're saying. It's easier said than done, but it is definitely good to have that type of mindset going into a lot of different things. That's great. That's great advice. So what else happened in your life that was very pivotal or very life-changing for you?
I can't really honestly think of anything more so than my dad leaving. Yeah. And like I say, I look at that as a blessing now, because I don't know who I would be or where I would be, but I know for a fact with every fiber of my being, I would have had a different life, and I would have been a different person. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty happy with who I am. So I look at it as a blessing for sure. But yeah, I don't know. I honestly can't think of anything else that has been utterly pivotal. I just kind of roll with the punches.
Yeah, which is good. That's good too.
Yeah.
I remember you said at the beginning that you actually said you're an only child, but then you were like, but I have siblings. So do you want to tell us about that?
Well, recently, like I said, I'm an only child from my mom and my dad. But my dad was married before he married my mom and had 2 children with that marriage. And I've known about them since I was 14, maybe 15. My mom told me about it, but we've never contacted each other. It's just a weird thing. But yeah, my half brother actually reached out to me in September, and we've met a few times now. And yeah, it's like the start of a whole new family. So I've met him and his wife and his 3 boys. And I have yet to meet my half sister. She lives in Edmonton area, so we haven't been able to make that work yet, but we will.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's just kind of nuts to be an only child your entire life, and now all of a sudden I'm an aunt, I'm a sister, I'm a sister-in-law. Like, where did all these people come from?
Yeah, totally.
But it's good.
What would you say the hardest thing about that experience is? And I'm also going to ask you about the best part. So I'm going to ask both sides. So what'd you say is the hardest about all that?
Well, actually the hardest, it was surprising to me, actually. My brother had never really seen any photos of our father. And he has a curiosity about our father right now. And so I have two whole albums, because my mom was a great picture taker when I was a little kid. And it was very hard to look at those photos with my brother, because I've put my dad to rest, so to speak. And I haven't really thought about him, or haven't looked at his face, or, you know, so to see, my brother told me that he had misconceptions about who our father was, because our father abandoned them as well. And so he just thought he was this awful man and never wanted to be a dad, and, you know, just had those ideas, because what else would he have known? And, you know, that's not the case. Like, my dad was an excellent dad to me. We did so many things together, and, you know, you see it in the pictures. It's just absolute happiness on a child's face. It's just something that he just quit. Like, it's not a job you can quit. So it was very hard to see my brother looking at these pictures and having the realization that our father is not the man he thought he was.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And was it hard for you as well to have some of those feelings come back up looking at the photos and everything?
It was. It kind of like resurrected the dead, so
yes,
for me. But I'm good with it now. You know, like, I'm at peace with it now. At first, I was just like, I don't want to talk about him. I don't want to look at him. But then I thought, you know what? I have a lot of good memories from that time, and just because it didn't end well doesn't mean that those memories aren't still valuable and not still good.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And so then what was one of the good, or a couple of good things that came from that, meeting your brother?
Well, just that I actually have a brother. So, like, that's all new and amazing to me. I come from, like I say, a very small family, like being an only child, and only having my mom's side of the family as well, because my dad was not close with his side. So I don't know aunts, uncles, cousins, nobody from that side of the family. So now all of a sudden I have all these new people, and they're amazing. I was a little nervous that I wouldn't like get along with my brother, or have, you know, just maybe don't have the right personality for a good relationship, but it's not the case at all. Like, we get along great. So yeah, so that's been really good.
Yeah, that is so good to hear. I always love those kind of stories that is they have like happy endings. They just sound really awesome. And so that's so good that you were able to reconnect with your brother, and everything has gone really well so far. So that's really awesome. And I have another question for you. What was one of the happiest times of your life? It could be anything at any point in your life.
Yeah, it's like right now, honestly.
Okay, tell me why it's so good. I want to know why right now is so good.
Yeah, like I'm buying lottery tickets, I'll tell you, because I'm hoping that it keeps going. But yeah, no, I have been single most of my adult life by choice. You know, in my 20s, I was out at the bar with my friends having the time of my life. Like, that's what you're supposed to do in your 20s. And I did not want to settle down at all. That was just me. And I was happy with that. And then in my 30s, I went back to school, and then I because I went back late, I felt like I needed to really focus on my career and work as hard as I could and get as far ahead as I could. So, but then when I hit 40, I kind of was like, well, it'd be kind of nice to meet someone, like I want to share my life with someone. I'm passionate about travel and all those things, and I want someone to share it with. And so I had a few dating nightmares, like as most people could probably tell you they've had as well.
I wanna pause you. Can you tell us your worst story, your worst online dating story?
Oh man, there's so many. Well, I was a couple years ago. I met a guy online on the Facebook dating app. I'm sure it has nothing to do with the app, but anyways, and we were together. It was about 8 or 9 months, and it just really wasn't going anywhere. So I was like, you know what, this isn't working for me. I gotta go out there and find someone that is on the same page as me. He basically was just kind of non-committal. Right. And I was like, okay, you're either all in or you're all out. There's no halfway here. So we parted on good terms. And then it was a few months later, he came back and said, he'd made a big mistake and wanted to try again and really be all in this time. And I fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. But it turns out he also reconnected with another ex-girlfriend, and basically said the same thing. And he was kind of stringing us both along at the same time. And instead of actually just telling me the truth, I found out on Facebook that they were engaged and he married her. Oh. So I'm like, it's pretty hard to be dumped, but I never heard of anyone that got dumped because their boyfriend married someone else.
That is huge.
Yeah, I mean, I can laugh about it now, but it hurt at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, the one that I dated, and then after that, I took some time to kind of lick my wounds and get over it and be ready to get out there again. So I met another guy on Bumble this time, and he seemed really great, really into me and just staying and doing all the right things. And then he just ended up having, money problem after money problem. And I did lend him some money, first and only time I've ever done that. Mm-hmm. But I did make him sign a loan agreement. I did it the right way. So let's put it this way, court case pending.
Wow.
Yeah, that one ended in disaster too.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, no, he just was into let's say a different lifestyle than I am. Mm-hmm. I am a one man at a time kind of woman. He is not.
Totally. Awesome. Yeah. Those are some, funny stories now. Back then, I'm sure they probably were pretty hard to go through. But you were telling us, I interrupted you, but you were telling us about, you're dipping your foot back into dating, and I'll let you take it away from there.
Well, and that's the interesting thing is, everybody has bad stuff happen to them, heartbreaks, or you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I truly believe it all serves a purpose. Yes. Like, even if you can't see it at the time, I believe it's to either teach you a lesson, make you stronger, or change the course of your life in a different direction. Like, it gives you a nudge in a different direction somehow. Yeah. And strangely enough, I have actually met the love of my life. Like, he is an absolutely amazing man, and he is someone I've known for 33 years.
So you didn't meet him on a dating app then?
No, we met 33 years ago as kids. He was the first boy I ever kissed when I was 13 years old. No, like, for real.
This is crazy.
Yeah, and we've always been friends. Like, we went to school together for a little while, and then we grew up in the same neighborhood in Woodlands, and we had the same friend circle. But then in our 20s, like he had children. And so he kind of, rightly so, he was not out at the bar with the rest of us all the time. And he just kind of settled down, and he got married and had his kids and had his family life and whatnot. But we've always remained in contact. We have always like chatted or met up here and there. I guess that's not unfortunate for me, but sadly, his marriage did not work out, and he's been single for a couple of years himself.
Yeah.
But he just needed to take some time as well to, get over that and then get back out there. Yeah. And him and I just kind of reconnected in the summer as friends and started going out and talking a lot more. And then feelings just burbled up, and we're still really surprised that it's the two of us, because we've known each other for so long.
Yeah.
But we couldn't help ourselves. Like we have those feelings for each other, and we're just very right for each other. We're on the same page. Like we have the same values, and yeah.
So exciting. That's so awesome.
I know. So all at once, I got a new boyfriend.
Yeah.
Who is like, I just know he's absolutely 100% the right person that I meant to spend my life with. Yeah. We're actually moving in together in the new year.
Congratulations. That's so exciting.
Yeah. And I got a whole new big family. So, I mean, yeah, when you ask me about the best time of my life, it's right now.
Yeah. That's so awesome. I have a question for you. As a young woman, what is some of your dating advice for, I don't know if there's a specific age I want to put on this question, but just some dating advice in general, as it seems like you've been dating for quite a bit. And now you finally have found the one, which is so exciting. But what advice would you give around dating?
Well, I guess like a few things. I had all these rules. Like, I'm 5'11" myself, so a tall woman. So I had this dating rule, like, you have to be 6 feet or taller.
Yeah.
Well, my boyfriend is 5'9".
Close.
Does it really matter? No.
No.
So I guess have your standards, absolutely. And know what it is you want, because that's good to have an idea about what you want. You have to be on the same page as your partner who you end up with. And why waste your time dating someone, for example, if you desperately want children, why would you date someone that is right up front and says, I never want children? Because guess what? He's not going to change his mind.
Right.
And you shouldn't have to give that up. Mm-hmm. So I would say, stick to your guns, have your standards, have an idea about what it is you want and what kind of person it is you're looking for, but also be open, be open to something that you maybe never thought about before. Things that not big ticket items like children or whatnot, but height, really? That was such a stupid one.
Totally.
Yeah. And always, of course, be safe. It's I don't know if people meet organically anymore, to be honest. Or I guess, what am I saying? It just happened to me, but
not as much as it used to.
Not as much as it used to. It's all online. There's all these different apps and whatnot. And I mean, I was on 4 or 5 of them, but just meet in a public place the first time, be smart. Don't give out your address to some guy. I mean, I think that's a no-brainer, but you'd be surprised.
Yes.
But take a chance. Maybe some guy is maybe not the best looking guy you've ever seen, but you know what? Pictures can be deceiving. I take horrible pictures myself. Or what if someone saw this and was like, oh, what's on her face? She doesn't have very good skin, but how do you know it's not a temporary situation?
Right.
Yeah.
That's so true. I love that.
Yeah. People have to give people a chance.
Yes. Yeah. I love that. Give people a chance, but still be safe. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so
and don't compromise. Don't compromise too much on what you deserve.
Mm-hmm. That's so awesome. So one of my final questions for you, which I think I know the answer to because of what you said previously, but I'm going to ask it anyways. If you could go back in time, would you change anything knowing what you know now?
A few things, yeah, I'd have to admit I would, but nothing major. I would tell myself to not gain a little extra weight because it's really hard to get off when you're older.
Yeah.
I was very active in sports when I was younger. And then in my 20s, I gave all that up and just kind of got lazy.
Yeah.
So I would tell my younger self to still remain more physically active. And I have to be honest, like, yeah, my weight has been a self-esteem issue for me.
Mhm.
And so I would rather not see myself suffer with that these years,
Yeah, totally.
And I would have went to school earlier.
Yeah.
If I had known, I would have done it right away in my 20s. But other than that, no regrets.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I do have a question following if you're comfortable talking about it. You said
Sure.
your self-esteem was a little bit low due to your body image. What was that journey like for you?
Yeah, well, it's still going on sometimes.
Right. I think it's never something that's just over. There's always a work in progress, but I'm just curious
Yes.
about some of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, I guess, yeah, like as women, we are inundated with magazines and celebrities and all that. And I mean, yeah, okay, granted, when you see celebrities, that's the real deal. If you see them on TV, because they're not airbrushed, they're not posed absolutely perfectly. But you know what? That's their job. That's their full-time job, is eating, exercising, and looking great, and doing a film for a few months. Where so the rest of us, like working, going to school, cooking, cleaning, all who has time to dedicate 4 to 5 hours a day to nutrition and fitness?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Totally.
So it's not an attainable goal. But like I really ignored and discounted all the other things I had to offer. Like I've always been told, I'm hilarious and I've got a good sense of humor and I make people feel comfortable. And yeah, I know I'm smart. I wouldn't have gotten where I'm at if I didn't have a few things rolling around in here. And I discounted all those things about the essence of who I am and focused only on the shell. And I made that like my hyper focus and thought that because that wasn't perfect, that I somehow was less than. And it's so not true. And yes, I'm still gonna work on my fitness a little bit and get in a little bit better shape and fit my jeans a little bit nicer.
Yeah.
But it's not the end all be all. And the guy that I'm with now has really helped me see that, is that he loves me absolutely the way I am, squishy bits, cellulite, imperfections, and all. And he tells me that every day, that I'm absolutely beautiful, and that if I want to change something, I should do it for me. But and I mean, not that I needed his validation,
but it helps.
But it really helps. It really helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally think being a woman, it's constantly reminding ourselves that, and I really love what you said about the outer shell, because I really resonate with that too. And it's such a good reminder for people to hear that it's not just about the outer shell. It is a lot about who you are to do in the inside. So I love that you brought that up, but I think that it's just like, it's a constant work. We got to remind ourselves and stop that negative thinking that we're almost like, we're just naturally doing it at this point. We're just raised on the, I got to be prettier. I got to look like this person that I just saw on TV or social media or whatever. So I think that's a really great point that you brought up there.
Yeah. Like everybody has something to offer and everybody is beautiful in some way. But yeah, if we all focus on the little, what we perceive as flaws.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. So to end our conversation, I ask 4 questions to
Okay.
every single person. I'm excited to hear what you have to say about these ones. So my first one is, what is the best advice you've received and from whom?
I would obviously my mom, she's full of advice, whether I want to hear it or not.
Yeah.
Most of it is good. But yeah, I guess the biggest thing my mom said to me, and it was when I was just anguishing about my dad and carrying that around, and she could see how fruitless it was because it wasn't going to change the situation. She just said to me, she goes, Shari, she goes, right now you are carrying a deluxe 9-piece set of luggage around with you, full to the brim, everywhere you go. She's like, do you know how heavy that is? And you carry it with you everywhere you go. She said, honey, you have to decide to set that luggage down and walk away and don't look back. And I was like, how can I do that?
Right.
But you know what, that has resonated with me for the last 25 years. And like with other things, like, you know, if there's something that's bothering you and it's totally out of your control and you can't, and festering over it is not going to change the situation because it's already happened.
Yeah.
Set it down and walk away. Live your best life. Let it go.
I love that. My jaw just dropped because there was a saying that I always said was that when I tried to explain to people how I felt was I was like, I have a backpack on that's already filled with binders that are my stuff. Then what I do is I would take other people's backpacks off them and throw it on my shoulder and try to take it for them. But I love that, you know, we can kind of change the narrative in that one and be like, choose to take that backpack off that you're putting on yourself that might not have nothing to do with you, but also that you can't control. So I really, really love that. That's like 10 out of 10 advice. I love that.
It is. So good job, Mom.
Yes, great job. Shout out to you. Awesome. And the next question is, what is the worst advice you've ever received?
I don't know.
This one's a
I guess I had a boss one time.
Yeah.
That basically, it wouldn't be so much advice. It was just the way he treated me. But I chose not to listen. So he was just someone that thought that unless you had an engineering degree, you were basically a waste of space. And you know, that kind of lit a fire under my belly. And that's when I started looking into going back to school because I thought, that's it. I'm not taking that.
Yeah.
I guess it wasn't advice, but it was the way he treated me. And I was like, I'm not having it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a really creative way to answer that question. I like that. Awesome. Okay, next question is, what is some advice that you would tell your younger self or someone in the younger generation? And it can be about anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell my younger self, a lot of stuff I would tell her.
Yeah.
But just, I guess, like, you know, when you're younger, you struggle with so many things, so many pressures, because, you know, I guess depending on how young we're talking, but, you know, high school age, let's say.
Yeah.
Junior high school, you're already like worried about, you know, who thinks what about you. You're worried about how you look. You're thinking it's all that whole physical thing again. That's maybe you think it's not good enough. You're wondering what you're supposed to do with the rest of your life. Like that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And my advice would be to still think about it because you do have to have some direction in your life and an idea about what it is you want to do, but just enjoy being in the moment. Like you're never going to get those times back again. And your life will probably never be as carefree as it is in those days. So just enjoy it. Enjoy the fact that your parents pay for the roof over your head. Don't be upset about the rules because when you go to work and pay taxes and put the roof over your own head, believe me, you would love to live with your parents sometimes.
Yeah, you're like, I'd love to go back to when that was a thing.
Yeah, so just enjoy where you're at in life because you're never going to be there again and you can't get it back.
Yeah. Oh, I needed to hear that. I love that. Thank you. That's so awesome. I love that. All right. My final question for the evening is, what are you grateful for?
Oh man, so many things. But yeah, obviously I'm very grateful for my mother, who has always been my number one supporter, as I get emotional. But yeah, she's always been my number one supporter, and told me I could do or be anything I wanted to be. And I'm super lucky too. I have a great group of girlfriends that I have been friends with for, oh man, some of them we've been friends for 30 years.
Yeah.
And we just have that connection and that level of trust, and that we can talk about anything and share anything, and we just have so many laughs and so many good times. And I'm grateful for my family, as expanding as it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm grateful to just be a part of all that. And yeah, and I'm grateful for my job and the company that I work for. It's, we're hanging in there and everything's good. And yeah, and my health. Yeah, so far so good.
Awesome. That's awesome. That's a great list of things to be grateful for. Thank you so much for coming on tonight and sharing your story and talking about all the downs, but also a lot of ups and good things that have happened in your life. It's been so awesome. Another great interview. Thank you so much, Shari, for opening up and sharing about so many things. I hope it resonates with one of you. And if it does, please reach out and let us know how this podcast episode has made you feel. I also have one more thing I'd like to ask you. When listening to this podcast, if you thought of someone, it would mean the world to me if you could share this episode with just one person, or share it on your social media story and tag me, Selena_Novello, so I can see what you guys are sharing and what your thoughts are on it, as I'd love to just keep this community growing and just be able to share more stories. And on that note, if you have a story that you would like to share, feel free to message me on all platforms or email me. I would love to help you share your story with the world. That's all I have for today. I hope you have a great day, evening, morning, whenever you're watching this, and we'll see you next time. Bye.